Hello and howdy. I don't even know if I have audio. This was fun. I've spent the last 45 minutes trying to prepare a surprise for you. Yeah, it looks like I have audio. Good. Perfect. And as things do fell through. But I'm not giving up. I'll keep trying. I was attempting to get my capture card working, so we could do a little bit of gaming, together on this Friday afternoon. It's rainy and cold here in Kansas City. I'm gonna bring up comments, and we are streaming a little early today to accommodate for another friend who wants to stream later on the channel. I had some fun animation stuff to talk about, but first, capture cards. Man, I'm using an HD60S capture card. I was trying to get my Xbox to show up on my computer so that I could share this beautiful game with you all. And we'll see if I can get it working for next stream. Okay. I'm gonna do a quick recap. I'll share my screen. And then I'm going to teach you about the new things that I totally learned. I did. I learned those things. Okay. So let's go ahead and welcome if you're just now joining the stream. I did have a fun surprise planned, as mentioned earlier, to show off Arc on my Xbox, but for the life of me, I could not get the capture card to display. I spent like the last 45 minutes trying to debug it and figure it out. At one point, we did get the game showing up, but it was like liney and like 12 FPS. It was ridiculous. Okay, so let's talk UI. I was hoping to have like a super chill, let's do a little bit of gaming before we dive in. So if you're watching now, let me know where you're joining from, what time it is for you. It's 12:46 p.m. in Kansas City. It's rainy and cold outside, and there's lots of birds. It's a beautiful spring afternoon. This is what we worked on last week. I guess we're just gonna give up on the gaming with you all on stream dream. It's gonna happen, and I'll probably do some night episodes, or just play Ark or Destiny or really whatever game floats. But yeah, on to animation. So last week we talked about achieving this arrow animation where you hover over a link, and on hover, the arrow just like moves slightly to kind of give the anchor a bit more life. And I loved it. I had so much fun. I'm actually do more streams like that where I try to achieve like something very, very small in UI, but like the ideas that came from chat, they just cracked me up. So I'm gonna go and walk through them a little bit. Make this a smidge pitch bigger. So we have all of these different, this is the animation we're talking about. Hopefully it comes across on the screen. It's very subtle, it's very slight. But each one of these is achieved in a different way. And so I'm going to recap those different ways that we talked about. And then I did a little bit of research, and I want to share with you what I found out in regards to performance in animations. My friend Ed, who was joining the stream last week, he does a ton of streaming with Blazor and UI, and he and I are doing a VR show on Thursdays now with our Oculus headsets. So you should definitely tune in for that. But he chimed in with a bunch of crazy ideas as well. But I always had this like moral quandary of, yes, but which one should we use for performance, right? Back in the day, I used to write SVG by hand and customize it and tweak it so that it was the most inline performant SVG graphic that could be. And that kind of got me started down this journey of performance in regards to these very tiny things. And so you might think, oh, who cares if you're doing padding or flex or transform, but it does actually still matter. And so let's dive into it. So this first one this is just the way that immediately was like, this is how you should do this. And so if we go, I just called it animation A. So if we go check out animation A, I'm doing a transition. Okay, thanks. I'm doing a transition transform. It's just with translate X. It's just like, okay, we need to move the arrow over, translate X, or translate just in general was what came to mind. And for those of you not familiar, translate just means to move. So transform has many properties. Transform, you can do things like rotate and give it coordinates. You can do rotate, translate, or skew. There's like a whole list. Actually, I think I have that list right here. So translate, scale, rotate, skew, and matrix. I've used all of these frequently. Hey Philip, happy Friday! Joining us from the YouTubes. Welcome, welcome. Talking about animations and performance and how I could not get my capture card working. So you cannot see my gaming session I had planned and a little bit of it's like Friday afternoon, right? And let's play a video game together. But it didn't work, and I will get it working. But hi, Philip. Welcome. Okay. So I've used all of these quite frequently, except for Matrix. I think I used Matrix. Gosh, what was that? I think it was in regards to SVG. But is it you want to go? So anywho, this is me. This was my first brain boggle of on hover. Let's go ahead and give this arrow a translate X of 5 pixels. Just move it over on its X axis 5 pixels. And then I transitioned that transform. Happy Florida Day. Florida Day? I'm going to put that up. Florida Day. Florida Day? Are you in Florida and it's Friday and you just combine those words? That's brilliant. It's very rainy here, which is on par for a Florida afternoon. So, but I'm in Kansas City. So the first option is Florida. Howdy from Florida. I'm like making it worse. Well, okay, so that is the transform. The next option I called animation Ed because he suggested we do padding left, which cracked me up. I mean, it totally works, right? We're on hover giving it a padding left of 10, which it could be anything. It could be 5 to match the other one. But we're also transitioning that padding left. And I didn't give it my crazy cubic Bezier. That's only for my sacred use. I just slapped an ease on there. The third way was the other option that came to mind. So when I think of doing something, my brain automatically goes to transforms. If I can't do it with a transform, or if I have more steps than 2, I go to keyframe. And so that's where this third one was born. And it's a little buggy. It pops on the end and it doesn't animate on the out transition. Which I thought animation direction reverse would fix it, but it's not. I don't know. So I have a comment in here to debug why reverse isn't working. However, this isn't the way that I would do it because there's only two. You have your starting state and you have your ending state, and then you can transition between. So I wouldn't use a keyframe, but if I had to use something other than a transform, keyframe's the way I would do it. And this was just a fun, let's list out all the ways. So this is the keyframe, by the way. Starting at 0 pixels on the translate axis and then moving 5 pixels away. The next one, which is why it has a turtle, because Turtle Guy suggested it. From the dawn of time, Turtle Guy has been good at floats, and positioning and all of that fun stuff. And so he said, let's do it with positioning. And I was like, eh. So he said that we should transition the left position. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I literally see like position relative, position absolute, and like my eyes kind of cross, and I'm like, I can't do it. That's just me. I was born in the age of flex, and to find something that flex or grid can't do that I need positioning for. But anyway, this is a thing. It works. It totally works. And then the last one was animation Ed, because Ed was getting cray-cray, and he said it is kind of like the exact opposite of what Turtle had suggested with transitioning the left position, transitioning the grid gap or the flex gap. It used to just be grid gap, and now it's for both. So we, on this last one, gave it a gap of 20 pixels, and we are transitioning that gap, which honestly, if I had to rank them, obviously the first one, transform, translate X, that's my girl, that's who I'm going to. But like, if I had to pick a number 2, I don't even think I'd pick keyframes, which was my other brainchild. I think I'd have to go with gap, just because of how, like, I don't know, it just makes me so happy. I don't know why. So those are just 5 different ways of doing it. I'm quite sure we can come up with 5 more, which is one of the things I love about CSS. There's so many ways of accomplishing the same thing, but to get to the meat of performance, and the thing that is always on my mind when I do something, because like I say that in the sense of, I always think I should really look and see if there's a more performant way of doing this, and then I often forget. So I'm not perfect, but at this time I looked it up and I was like, when doing animation, what's the most performant way? And that's actually where I got that graphic. And so I'm just going to take you straight into the beautiful, if you've ever heard Paul Lewis talk, or I've met him, I don't know, from everything I've read that he's written, he's like brilliant. I found this article, and this is something I love about people. I would have never clicked on this title, but it's the exact information that I was looking for. And so the TLDR of, if I need to use an animation in my UI, what animation should I use? And this was the list of animations. He said you either use a transform or use opacity. And the reason is because the layer that these things happen on. So this graphic right here, which actually I snagged it so that we could zoom in a bit. There's these different layers that things happen on in the browser. And if you can stick to them happening in the composite layer, that is going to be the most performant animation you get in CSS. Yes, Ed, my coworker, we should still care about it. He was joking that, like, with all evergreen browsers, you really shouldn't have to worry about this, and you can just animate anything. But I don't know. I've been in situations where it would have been nice if someone had cared. So I think we should still care. There's actually a catch with this. It's not just use a transform or transition to opacity and you'll be fine. There's actually a caveat, which is you need to promote the element that you plan to animate. Absolutely beautiful, absolutely brilliant. This is a way of telling the browser, I'm gonna like make this my issue. This is a way of telling the browser that this element is going to change. And so it promotes it to its own layer, if you will. And it ensures that it's only going to happen during the compositor layer. So if we go over here and we go up to a arrow, let's promote this element. And we're going to say will change, because I'm technically promoting all the elements, which is silly because this, again, only is going to be if you're animating with transforms or opacity. So let's actually go and move this. We're going to put this down. Put it down here on animation A. Thank you, Alyssa. Will change. And then there's actually another, I'm going to comment this out because I was doing it to all arrows, but again, it's only going to be effective on this instance. And then I'm going to paste this line, and this is for older browsers, which if you're already worried about how am I animating this thing, is it the most performant, should I use a transform, can I use a transform, then you're probably worried about older browsers. So you will want this line because will change is only useful for modern browsers. So transform, translate Z is a manual way. And this article by Paul Lewis, which I will paste into the chats right this moment, it's a manual way of letting the browser know that this needs to be on its own layer. So if you have both of these and you're doing a transform or you're doing opacity, you're good to go. And now this is the most performant arrow block that we can get. And the other ways are valid and they work. They will happen on more than just the compositor layer. So yeah, I thought that was a really fun tidbit and I loved it. And I think the next step for me is going to be, and please feel free to shout out in the chat if you already know. The next step for me is going to be looking into how to see what layer things are actually happening on. There's got to be some way of tracking that in DevTools. I feel like that's got to be a thing. Because I want to, just outside of this information, I want to go ahead and see how different chunks of UI are performing and optimizing those further. I love this stuff. Absolutely love it. Let me know if you have any questions. I know it was a really short topic today, so we could probably go and grab, we've got this. So in an hour, probably more like 45 minutes, I need to hand over the channel so that it can reset for my friend Sam, who has a show happening this afternoon. But we'll probably have some time to tackle a CSS challenge, or if anybody in the chat has something they really want to see. I freaking love this, and I think this specific challenge of creating different, creating the same thing but in different ways. So I think next Friday I'm definitely going to pull things up and also share what else I found on performance and layers in the browser. But for now, let's go ahead and look up CSS challenge. I never remember. I can't remember the URL. 100 days CSS. You think I have it memorized right now? So that's fun. I'm assuming this is SVG. Although I don't know how often you need to build these things. Actually, if it is SVG, you could build this in CSS, I think. All the pieces, I'm thinking about the shadow layer, actually. Circles are easy, lines are easy. I guess the shadow would be the same shape, just shifted and clipped. I wonder if I can, I'll pull it up. Here there's actually. At least I know there's a way to pull up these fellows. Oh, that's funny. This one was definitely. I remember doing this. These triangles are CSS. Yes, your animated backgrounds. Yeah, all goods. Nice. So what I'm doing is what is super easy to tackle 45 minutes, but I want to see sidetracking. Where are you now? I'm going to scroll the. So just a bunch of transforms and drawings. So at this point, this is something. It's a really cool like. I love and I hate these things because look at how many transforms there are. This is not like a really big red flag. Obviously, this needs to be an inline SVG. That's what it needs to be. And then you can just animate the pieces. Here it is. Position absolute with height top left, background color, border radius. So it's just a box shadow. It's how they're achieving. At least that's how Milad achieved it. And I haven't formed it, so I totally formed it. Anywho, so that's why I tend to honestly ignore challenges like this. There's not practical pieces of UI that you would actually put in a website, but they are, I guess, good challenges to use your brain on how you would animate pieces of like element. But even like this, I think what I'm going to do is take this and for next UI Friday, well, let me go back here. We'll take the piggy and there we are. UI Fridays, create a new doc. And for the next UI Friday, I'm going to take the piggy, but I'm going to do it with SVG and yes. I love that idea. Cute little, he like blinks it right now and then he's going to do it the way. There he goes. Okay, so yes, tune in next week, 12. So I guess the 19th. Oh, 19th. Oh, okay. And we should be able to tackle the gorgeous piggy, make it draw it in SVG. Is this April already? No, we're in March. It's flying by, but check out that article by Alyssa, and I'm actually going to go through. I was looking for an actual UI challenge. I need not CSS challenges, but like UI challenges. I don't know why. That guy just backed me up. Okay, I'm closing this. I'm going to go ahead and open up a new one, and I'm just going to make my own. So in the same fashion that we did the arrow box, this one's with an anchor. I'm actually going to change this to anchor arrow box animation. Let's go to buttons and do some opacity stuff. Some stuff with opacity. How do I never know how to make a new pin. It always eludes me. New pin. There it is. My face, of course. If a groundhog inspects their white component, do they see their shadow drop? That's funny because it's like almost spring, so it's time appropriate. Okay. Button. of sexy default button right there. So I always love to start with the air fryer reset. I want to see, wow, I can even like eat that sentence. My reset. Reset CSS. That is it. I always like to start with this whenever I'm building new projects. It's she's my go-to. I'm just curious on what is included in his reset for the button. Gosh, I can't handle it. Styles. I don't know what the container is called because we're inside of an iframe. So I'm gonna open my inspector. So they do give you a body. Cool. So protect the body. How is it in Florida, by the way, right now? I'm moving to Tulsa next month, and be closer to family for a little bit. Turtle guy and I grew up there and actually met in high school there. But it's not forever. It will not be our forever home. And we've moved 11 times in the last 14 years. And so this is number 12. We're like good at being nomads. But I think out of all the places we've lived, Florida's the one that felt like home the most, which is really interesting because we don't have any blood family there. So let it be so. Body. Origin. Like I get off a plane in the like in the Orlando airport in TO, and I'm like, it's just the air like smells like home. 20, we'll say 40. And I need a really sexy color, so somebody throw out their favorite color. So this one. Yes. Just see this. But we need colors to be inspired by. It's a nice blue. And it kind of is like a nice cross between background color. A nice cross between winter and spring, this blue. Okay. I don't know if his reset did anything for buttons, which I could just like search it for and comment it out. Don't comment. Cut it out and see. I'm not really seeing anything. And I'm just gonna only be working in Chrome anyways, so I don't really want to do 50 lines of CSS down. Why are you yelling at me? I just say. Okay, this is gonna be button, animate, button. Woof. I don't think the color, I think it's just the opacity. We need a bigger font size. Right. Alright. Do I have to be specific? Font size, how to do anything. That's about specificity. Browser's being more specific. Okay. So yeah, no need to thank you. How's 22 look? Better. Cool. So let's make a couple of them. And we're going to do some animations. This one is, oh, right, things aren't like flex column by default, are they? We're going to leave it at that. Cool. Boop, boop, boop. I am curious what the browser's doing with default, so let's crack her open and see. I literally, anytime I like style a button, I just like go at it. I've never actually stopped to think what the browser's doing. I'm assuming, because Paul Lewis says that opacity is the best way to animate something, and what's animating here is the color, whether it's a new background color or an opacity. I'm really curious. It works with Google, and Chrome is Google, so doing what they're saying is the best way to do it. So let's find out. This is a button. Then we have to go to hover. And I need to make this much bigger. I just realized. I do this so we can see it. So now when I select the button, you have to go up here to these tools and say on hover. I want to see the styles on hover. And then a little bit more wiggle room. Background color. That's weird. When I selected hover, I assumed it would show me the hovered styles. What? It's changing. Background color, internal light and dark. That's its current. I don't know why hover's not working. I don't. Well, when I do hover, looking at this, it's flashing, but it's not actually adjusting anything. So, I'm not sure what they're going to do wrong. Let me know if you know what that's wrong. Anyways, the first way, I'm going to say opacity. Oh, you're all on something. There we go. Oh, opacity. And the next one we're going to do background color, and I'm sure there's a third way of like my first thought for a third way is to give it like some sort of like element over it that's like opaque or something, and it pops in, so you're actually animating its visibility or something. We're gonna wait until a better idea. Idea number 3. That's not that. It's gross. We can do that. Wait. We need at least 3 ideas here, Babel. Okay. So we need selectors for these 3. Why? Oh, you're right. I guess I could just select them on the order, but I don't want to. Or if they have siblings or not, but again, I don't want to. So we're going to say animate opacity, and we're going to call you animate color. Or maybe just background, animate background. Because color is in reference to the font color, so I don't know muddled terms. So here we go. Animate opacity on hover. Opacity. I'm actually get darker. So I guess its opacity would have to be ew, I don't like this anymore. Now that I'm like thinking through it, its opacity would have to be slightly opaque and then get more solid on cover. But opacity is a more important option. Just the idea though of like the background color, like let's say we're listening to like, what color scheme they prefer, and they have like the dark color scheme which changes the background, and then that's showing through our button, which I guess if we're doing that in that case, we would take into account dark mode or light mode and change the color of the button. But even so, I'm imagining, let's look at it. Let's look at my worst nightmare. So instead of background color this, I'm imagining if black. And if we gave all buttons a slight, or actually instead of all buttons, capacity of, and then 3 to 1. So like that, which is like makes me want to hurl. Transition SV 45 seconds keys. Sure. Save it. Ew, that's even worse. It's too slow. And I don't know here. Oh, it's so slow. This is like better. Yeah, I'm gonna say ease in. I want to pop more on the out. It still feels really slow. Could be because of how drastic it is as well. So this is animating opacity, which is flickering and it makes me want to throw up. And like I said, depending on the background, you're choosing to let your background in, it completely changes the kind of feel of the button. I'm going to go back to black because it's the harsher one and it's going to give us a better. So usually when I go, I'm like, hey, I can do it, but opacity is not what I reach for. But it is. There. Right. And padding of whole pixels. And that's better. 515. Yeah, it should be. And I think we're ready. We're ready to do the animated background on hover or hyper, whatever you're feeling. And I want to use darken, but I think that might be fascinating. Is there a CSS one? Right, darken CSS choice. It's a CSS. Sassy just for that. I really thought there was a way to do it. Like I thought that CSS now had. Oh, am I making it up? Am I? Pardon. All right, let's pull this up because I know you can. Sass. Yeah. You just say lighten or darken, and then you pass the percentage along with the color. It's what we need. I mean, I guess the other way is to color pick. Okay, so we're gonna pick this color, and then we're going to go colors and formats, and I need to shift it a bit. So we could grab. Can you use HSL in the browser? Let's look it up. Actually, let's just try. Let's just try it. And if it doesn't work, then that'll be our answer because Bernie's not here for reading. CSS HSL. CSS HSL doesn't work. So that'd be pop change. Okay, so if we go and instead of this one, Turtle is slapping me, so I'm seeing what it likes. It's still pink, so it's still pink. So now if we go and we change the HSL on background cover, hue, saturation, lightness. I think it's the saturation that I want to change. I don't know. See how not pink that was. Oh, I'm not hovering. Acres. Oh, of course it's not. Should just be popping. Is that like not enough to see a change, or am I? Let me make sure I have this selected right. Animated background. The background. Yeah. Let's do this. Blue. Oh, it's animate background, not animated background. Here. Yay. Now we can cast our hustle. Or just hustle. Hustle. Let's do 90 on the light. Oh, I don't want to go lighter. I want to go with the other direction. Dark. Woo! She might be a bit too dark. Yeah, that's too dark. We'll do Simba. Touch 78. Package. Being delivered to my doorstep. Okay. What? Now we need to transition. Background, color. Oh, I almost forgot. We did not promote this element, so even though we're doing the disgusting way of opacity, we're still not. You can hear the person talking at someone that who's looking at the package. It's not. We'll change opacity. That's how we promote that element, and then you also have to go translate C0 or something. I totally forgot that line. Yeah, that was it for older browsers. Okay, so now this one is the most performant. Ooh, I just don't like it. Ooh, she says. Okay, and then this one, I don't. Why does it still have a border? I don't know. We're gonna inspect it. Outline mid. Who's giving you a border and why? Border bottom. I did. I really did. I don't know. Maybe I need to be like more specific. Here. I think I do need to be more specific. This. I really don't want to do this, and I don't think it's. So there. Okay. Border. Let's do this, just so it's more. Oh. Here we go. That's okay. But we're not transitioning it yet. So background color, 0.2 seconds, please. It's better. It's much better, which just kind of upsets me a little bit. We're gonna have to do something fun. Funky fun. Okay. So the first one, opacity, is the most performant. But I'm actually going to give this border outline color. What color? These three. It's us. Oh, cool. Look what just got here. Shut the front door. Maybe this will work with my capture card. Unless you don't think it will. It's so small. It's literally half the size of the last Xbox. Shut up. Okay, I'm so excited. Well, we're gonna try to do. I guess it would right now. I was like, I want to stream. No, okay.
I feel like a 30 gig ARC install.
You're right. Never mind. I need to install games because I did all that goodness. But we're gonna do some nighttime game streams. Hopefully, I can freaking get it working. Anyways, back to the point of what we were talking about. So this first one is more performant, but the opacity is gross because it lets the background color behind the element change the overall feel of the element, and that's a big no-no because it needs to be encapsulated so that it can go wherever it needs to go and it still functions properly. So I really don't like this, but background color is how I always do it. But apparently it's not the most performant. So I want to do idea number 3, which I don't even know if I'm going to finish because I really have to hop off soon to give the stream time to swap over. But we're doing it. I want to do an opacity overlay. Yeah, we're doing it. Okay, we're going to change the opacity of an overlay. Oh, frick, but then the overlay would affect on button click, and that's not very clean. Let me think about this. Let me think with my thinker. And then you could just hijack the click of the overlay and get to the button. Super janky. Just to get an opacity animation that's encapsulated. Turtle. Come talk me through this. Okay, so this first one is animating on opacity, right? And it's supposed to be more performant, but it lets the background dictate the look and feel of the button. And I want the feeling of that UI piece to be encapsulated, so it can be put anywhere and be fine. This one is doing background color, which is the normal way that I would do this. However, it's not how Paul Lewis says is the most performant animation, because it's either transforms or opacity, right? So animating background color, not as performant as it could be. So idea number 3 was really jank, and I'm hoping you can improve upon it, is to animate opacity of an overlayer, so that when you hover, you're animating opacity, but then you would have to hijack that overlayer to be like your button.
I would do?
What would you do? Tell me what you would do.
Do a pseudo element absolutely positioned behind the button to be your background color. Opacities.
That doesn't make any sense because, oh, you're saying on hover of the button, then that thing would change, but then the button's completely opaque? Okay, help me do that really fast because I've got to get off this stream soon. So we're going to do it. Idea 3, and then we're going to say, why is Rocket never where I need it to be? 1 second. We're going to throw in a turtle, because turtle is helping us whip this out. Okay, and then, animate PS opacity for pseudo element. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Let's look it out real quick, babe. I know. I'm making brain on the spot. So we're selecting the button itself, and we're giving it a background of none. Yes. Of none, so that you can see what's behind it. Correct? Or are you unhappy?
No, the button will still need the background.
So then how are you going to see the pseudo element behind it animating?
You have to see a pseudo element on top of it. Because the button is the container.
But then you're hijacking the click of the pseudo element.
No, it's all, you're still clicking the button, still hovering over the button.
Because it's a pseudo element?
Pseudo
Okay.
element, so it's a child of the button.
Okay, so we don't do that. And we're going to say, we're going to select this, and we're going to say, oops. I'll say before.
Sure.
2 colons. And I need it to be as big as the button is.
Yep.
So how do I just say with 100%? Or
Position absolute.
position. And why are we absoluting?
And because it needs to be absolute position.
And do I have to give its parent position relative?
You do.
Yay! You and your position relative.
Also, when you height 100%, top and left is 0.
100% top of 0, left of 0, and the color we're giving to the pseudo element, right? Like the background color.
The pseudo element will be the thing the opacity is changing.
Okay. So pseudo element, it needs to have an opacity. It actually needs to have a color so that we can see something. So background color of, I'm just griffin, which we say white, and then we're going to give it an opacity of 0.8 by default. I don't know. And then we should.
We also need a display block.
Oh,
Just needs a content.
Right, content display. 1 second. Display block and content.
But you put the text button in the pseudo element.
Text of the button needs to go in the pseudo element, which means we say, how do we hijack that? We like, isn't there a way of saying like, isn't there a way? Like JavaScript. So content is idea number 3. And then of
You
course,
can hijack attribute values, but not just text values.
all right, let's hijack an attribute value. What is it? Add text? What do I say?
Data text.
Data text. That. And then we need to say content. Like a string. It showed up, but it's collapsing.
Right, because the button has no intrinsic height anymore, so it's just like padding.
So the button has no intrinsic height anymore. It's just the height of the padding.
You can give the button either height or text. You can probably use the same content pattern line on the button. So
But then it's actually in both places. What?
you could set the text color to transparent
Also,
on the button.
doing that did not fix that issue.
Then you can use that.
What was your other option?
Put the text in both places.
No, text in both places, but you just said something
Set
else.
the color of the buttons font to transparent.
The color of the button's font to transparent. How is that aiding us in our height issue?
You need the text in both places.
Why do I need the text in both places? It didn't change. What?
The text isn't on the button. You need the text on the button to get the button painted. Or
I don't think so, because putting the text on, you're saying I need to put it in between the button. Oh.
Or you could just give the button a hard code.
I don't know which is worse. I think
You
I'm
could
going to put it
probably-
twice in the markup.
You can probably give the button a height of like 1M. And that might be enough height for the text since it's ends.
No, we've got to do the height because if we're off just a little bit, it's going to have this like weird duplicate effect, and I don't want it to be dependent on that. Height of 1M. And then what did you say?
1M plus the padding.
Can I do calc and CSS?
We need to tell the element not to be border box. Box sizing.
I love this. I've never looked up the box sizing and CSS options.
We don't want padding.
Right. Border box. What's the other one? Yes, we get it. Border boxes. What?
Box sizing.
You want me to click this? Content. Okay. Fun. I know, I've never manually set content on. Okay, but we are having some line issues. So I have to set my height up for elements. So I'm going to go. That makes sense. Whoa! What am I seeing?
You want the pseudo element to be border box.
I want it to take padding into account. That's a mind trip. Sick. Okay, hang on. We gotta finish. I gotta get off so soon, but we gotta finish. So on hover, animate, pseudo opacity. We can do it. Hover,
Oh yeah.
and then I need to select the before on hover. Or yeehaw! It's rocket. Before and then opacity. Opacity. I don't care. And then I need to tell this to be transition. Opacity. 0.2 seconds. Piece in is what everything else is using. Rid of what? What?
It should be.
Why am I getting rid of that? I don't understand. I thought we were going to animate the. What? Why do you do this to me? Oh, I see. God, I hate that. That is ugly. Okay, let's try it. Oh, but the turtle is still getting the opacity, which means. Why is the turtle getting?
Because the turtle is on the thing you're changing the opacity of.
Because the turtle is on the thing I'm changing the opacity of.
You know how you fix it?
I don't understand the problem, so no, I don't know how to fix it. The turtle is on the thing. The text is on the thing.
Yeah.
I don't.
So you need the text to be on something else.
The text isn't changing though. I don't understand why the text and the turtle are being different.
The text is changing.
No, the text isn't changing. No. Okay, well, turtle insists that it's changing.
It has to be.
So I
Change
put
the opacity more. You should see it change.
change the opacity more. Okay. Okay, you're right. The text is changing. Thank you. So the text is on the wrong thing. Let me think.
You need another layer.
I don't want another layer.
You need a third layer with the text on it. Get the text off of the before, put the text on the after.
I don't want another
And
layer.
then add some Z indexing. You copy a lot of them.
Okay, a lot of it, or okay, cool. So we're gonna go and select our after, and we're gonna give our after. I don't know what it means outside of content.
You don't need background color. You don't need palette.
It does need the box sizing. It doesn't need opacity. It doesn't need a transition. It does need positioning. It does need block. It does need content.
It needs
the rest of
content.
everything else.
Yeah. And then your before needs to change the content to string.
Right.
And then you need to give your before the index of 1 and your after is the index of 2.
The index. You know it's fun when you start using the index. You know you're doing something fun.
Agreed.
You know you're doing it right way. But we're still having a weird, a line height issue, and I thought we fixed that because we said border box on the after. Do I need to change it to content?
Oh,
box?
you need the padding. Padding in here needs to be on that.
Gotcha. But also, before doesn't need to be border box. Because if somebody thinks it's displaying other than the opacity, right? Or does it need it so that it covers it fully?
It does.
Let's go ahead and give this button a different background color so we can actually see something. So we're going to say background color of Rebecca purple. Spelled today.
You might not need it.
There we go. Yeet. So 3 different ways of animating. Easy as that. And this last one, it does both animating the opacity and still, I assume it's a clickable button. I don't know if the events would be, because
It's clickable.
A turtle says it's clickable because we're only affecting the before and after elements of the button itself. So you should still be able to click it. we should probably test it. But there you go. 3 different ways. We should whip that out real quick. I'm going to go get this set up so that hopefully we can do some gaming streams. I hope you all have a marvelous Friday, wherever you are, whatever time it is. Stay warm and keep coding. Mwah! I'll talk to you all next week or later on a different stream. Bye, guys.